Just I request you people to be connected with me and learn things from time to time. So when it comes to women's writing, especially block 4, and we are talking about unit 11, 12, and 13, what exactly are we all talking about? Right? So unit 11 deals with schools and waves of feminism. Now, coming to the introduction of schools and waves of feminism, you see that feminism is usually defined as belief in the social, political, and economic equality of both the sexes. So, if you say male and female, there is no difference between these two genders. Still, socially, politically, economically, we get to see that women most of the time are backward and they're downtrodden and so on and so forth. So, to avoid this, we have to sometimes adopt things from the feministic perspective and see where female or women are being backward in certain areas of life, like societal, political, and economical conditions of society. Therefore, when you really define feminism, that it becomes the belief that the in the equality in all three eras, all three spheres of life. Right. So the term feminism has been coined or was coined by Charles Fourier in 1837, and the feminist movement has historically focused on addressing injustices against women. So feminist writers, regardless of gender, highlight issues faced by women and critique the social, political, and cultural inequalities that perpetuate these problems. So the feminist movement originated in Europe and the United States with significant milestones such as the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, which marked the beginning of organized feminist activism. So Seneca Falls, where there was this convention, had a huge meeting of women in 1848. So people started talking about various uh, thoughts. They started expressing their thoughts about women and their lives and the kind of backwardness, or for that matter, the domesticity, the confinement to only families, homes, and their lack of opportunities, various things they discussed. That is where the movement originated, that they realized there is a need, that a feminist movement is required in order to take women things, issues related to women, to bring it to the notice of the world and also to find resolution for all the problems. So we see that origins of feminist movement when we look at the feminist movement has its roots in the West, where women were historically denied rights to property, education, and public participation. So early feminist voices, including Christine D. Pizan, who advocated for women's education in the 15th century, and Mary Wollstonecraft, who wrote the A Vindication of the Rights for Women in 1792. And then we also see that people argued for equal educational opportunities for women, but Vindication of the Rights of Women, written by Mary Wollstonecraft, clearly established the thought that definitely women need educational opportunities for women, and that too not just educational, equal educational opportunities for women. And we see that the movement gained momentum in the 19th century, with women demanding equal rights in education, work, and politics. So if we move on, we see schools of feminism. What are the schools of feminism? What do you mean by that? Schools of feminism refers to various types of theories or the thought process or the ideologies that emerged eventually from the umbrella term feminism. So, if feminism, when you talk about it, is not how do you get social, political, and economical equality? Okay, so from which perspective can you attain? So, different people got different opinions and perspectives when it comes to attaining these three, aspects in life for women. Therefore, one of the ideologies among that is liberal feminism. So you can say feminism is not a monolithic movement. It encompasses various schools of thought, each with distinct goals and approaches. So the following are the key schools of feminism discussed in this particular unit. You see that liberal feminism, where liberal feminists advocate for equality of opportunity and challenge societal assumptions that women are less capable than men. Key figures include Mary Wollstonecraft argued that women education in vindication of the rights of women, and then John Stuart Mill, who supported women's rights and the subjugation of women. Then Virginia Woolf in A Rooms of One's Own, where she says that women need financial independence and personal space to achieve equality. Usually, when you talk about liberal feminism, it tells you that without changing anything, a little more fine tuning is required when it comes to domestic sphere or works or professional life or academic life, so that women also will be able to uplifted and they also get equal opportunities with men. This is what liberal feminists believe in. They don't want any other changes, but let the framework of the society be in the way it is. Let the schools or marriage or children or education or finances or anything, let them be in the way they are already. You don't need to change anything except for rising opportunities for women. This is what liberal feminist people would talk. On the other hand, radical feminism is completely different. It doesn't advocate only the upliftment of women within the framework that is existing. They want this to be uplifted in a different way, that they want completely patriarchal society to be diminished, and they want completely women to take over everything. That means radical feminists seek to dismantle patriarchal structure and emphasize that the personal is political. So they say that let women be the dominant figures, not the men. Okay, then only if you reframe the entire societal structure, be it women, be it marriage or be it education or be it work or be it domesticity, anything where women, if women has the dominant power, men will not be able to trouble them, or there will be no patriarchal mindset. Then women are going to get the authority over the or the superiority over the or any sphere of life. This is what radical women come up with. So you can see Germaine Greer, the female eunuch. She critiques the sexual repression of women. Kate Millett, in Sexual Politics, she analyzes how patriarchy controls both public and private life. Okay, so this is about radical feminism. Now, as on we move ahead, we also get to see other feminist theories. So Marxist and socialist feminism in 11th unit, we get to see where Marxist and socialist feminists link women oppression to capitalism. They believe that capitalism is basically downtroding the backward people. And in backward people, again, women are more suppressed. Actually, they are manipulated, they are exploited most of the time, and they are taken they are taken for granted of their hard work, their diligence, so on and so forth. So we see that Raya Dunayeshwakya, who's the founder of Marxist humanism, emphasizes the role of working class women in history. Dunayevskaya. Sorry for my pronunciation. I'm not sure how it is pronounced. Usually, Russian names I'm slightly not very familiar with. So we see that she emphasizes on the role of a working class woman in history. Lucy Parsons, when you talk about Marxist feminism, she advocates for women's rights within the context of labor justice and anti-capitalism. Moving on, a cultural feminism where it emphasizes on the inheritance differences between men and women, celebrating traditionally feminine virtues. So when there is some asset, available, and when the family has to give it to the next generation, usually family chooses to give it to male child than the female child. So this turns out to be a cultural norm that male child inherit the property of the family, not the female. So this inheritance part, when it comes to traditionally, not only asset, but also various other things also are given to male child. However, cultural feminists emphasize that inheritance differences definitely should not exist. They also celebrate traditionally feminine virtues. Okay, how female are better than and how they are they deserve to be inherited everything from the family equally with men. This is what cultural feminists speak. So the key figures, if you see Margaret Fuller in Women in the 19th Century, where Fuller argues women's emotional and intuitive strengths. Similarly, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, she's in the Yellow Wallpaper. Gilman critiques the domestic oppression of women. Okay, so let's move on and see psychoanalytical feminism. So, psychoanalytic feminists explore how gender identity is usually shaped early childhood experiences and patriarchal structures. Okay, the key figures. So, when father is hitting the mother or when father is domestically abusive, the child also learns the same thing. Similarly, if the mother or is a traumatic, submissive natured person or overtly dominant person, either ways, the child also learns the same thing. So this is where the gender identity is shaped by early childhood experiences and patriarchal structures, where the key figures include Nancy Chordo, The Reproduction of Mothering, 1978. Chordo argues that women's oppression is rooted in psychological factors. Similarly, we have Julia Kristeva, who challenges traditional gender binaries and proposes the idea of multiple sexual identities. Right? So these are a few key figures when we talk about psychoanalytical feminism we get to see this. So let me also take you ahead with other sets of feminism. Black feminism. Ma, Black feminism, when we talk about, it highlights the unique experiences of Black women who face both racism and sexism. Key figures include Alice Walker, where she terms the coin feminism to celebrate the intersection of race. Just a second. So when we talk about Black feminism, Black feminists highlight the unique experiences of Black women, so who face both racism as well as sexism. So the key figures you get to see who wrote regarding this issue or with this kind of theory, with various works you want to explore. You can see Alice Walker, who coined the term womanism to describe the intersection of race and gender in one of her works, In Search of Our Mother's Garden. So it was published in 1983. Similarly, you also see Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye, 1970, where Morrison explored the impact of racial and gender oppression in Black women. So these beautiful stories not only tell us superficially the story of blacks and their problems, but also they give deep psychoanalytical traces of the mindset of black people and the traumas they go through, the atrocities they come across, and the kind of nature they develop due to all these conditions that are surrounding them, especially women when you talk about how not only racism they face but also sexism they face and how they are double jeopardized, double punished is what in these works we can come across. And we moving on, so you also get to see this multicultural, post-colonial, and global feminisms. Okay, what exactly are we talking about when we are talking about multicultural or post-colonial global feminisms? Let's see, let's have a trace of, let's have an idea about all these things as well. So, the schools of feminism usually emphasize on the diversity of women's experiences. Okay, different from in cultures and nations. So you talk about Indian women, their culture emphasize on a certain, their culture provide them one certain type of experience as for women. Similarly, we see post-colonial, after most of the countries got independence, and what kind of conditions have been created, and in those conditions, what sort of troubles were faced, or what sort of issues were raised that women are still oppressed and still find troubles in regular life. Or for that matter, if we globally see women where they go abroad or they work across the world, and yet are finding the racism and feminism together. So their culture, their post-colonial conditions, and the global nature, all these things, what sort of experiences are given by these elements of feminism to women. These are a few things we come across in the works of Chandra Talpade Mohanty in her work in Under Western Eyes, 1984 publication. Mohanty critiques Western feminism's homogenization of third world women. Similarly, we also see Gayatri Spivak's work, Gayatri Spivak Chakravarti, one of the renowned feminist theorists she is. So she talks about subaltern people. So she says, she questions, can the Subaltern speak? In her 1985 work, I mean, that is the title of the book, where Spivak questions whether marginalized women can truly express their experiences within colonial and patriarchal structures or not. Okay, so these are about various types of feminism. So if you have, once again, check with the types of feminisms we have come across. One is liberal feminism, which talks about keeping the societal structures in the same way they are, but yet the need of fine-tuning women's positions and uplifting their conditions. And radical feminism, which talks about entire restructuring the societal conditions so that women have highest positions and they make better society, they believe. So we see Marxist and socialist feminism, which talks about how women are oppressed by capitalistic minds and also by their own society, which welcomes capitalist society. And we see cultural feminism where inheritance comes into picture, and how women are not considered as inheriting the deserving people of family to inherit the assets in by every mean, and how that needs to be changed. This is what the writers like Margaret Fuller, Charlotte Perkins Gilman speak. And we see psychoanalytical feminism, how gender identity is shaped various psychoanalytic conditions. Patriarchal structure, especially, is what discussed by psychoanalytic feminists. And we also see that Black feminism, where Alice Walker, Toni Morrison, these are the renowned Black writers, Black feminist writers, come up with various ideas and thought process, ideologies, and how they analyze the conditions and come up with the conditions, I mean, the living conditions of Black people, and how women are the victims of not only racism but also sexism, right? And we see multicultural, post-colonial, and global feminisms, how these feminisms are effectively brought new theories into picture, especially Chandra Talpade Mohanty or Gayatri Spivak Chakravarti, how these people brought new perspectives into feminism and how they fill the gaps of what has not been discussed in feminism, right? So this is what you can learn in 11.3.7, that is your 11th unit. Moving on, one of the very famous, one of the latest and extremely discussable feminism is ecofeminism. So these people draw connections between the oppression of women and the exploitation of nature. So key figures, you see Vandana Shiva, an Indian environmental activist who links environmental degradation to patriarchal structures. Similarly, Carol J. Adams, who talks about the sexual politics of meat. In 2004, he wrote this book and he explored the parallels between exploitation of women and animals. So this is also coming under ecofeminism. And look at it, minority, indigenous, and Dalit feminisms, where these feminisms focus on the specific oppressions faced by minority, indigenous, and Dalit women. Key figures, you can see Shantabai Kamble in the kaleidoscopic story of my life. 1983, Kamble recounted the experiences of Dalit women in India. So how Dalit women are also gender, just like black women, face racism as well as sexism. Both they face, especially casteism. Based on their caste, they are not only oppressed by their families, but also they are oppressed by the society. So they are also double, sometimes triple jeopardized. This is what we get to see when we read Dalit feminism, minority and indigenous feminisms. So we see various types of oppression women usually face. So now, once we understand various types of feminism, it is necessary we know how exactly the waves of feminism affected life or the kind of societal conditions. So we get to know waves of feminism in 11.4. So feminism is often divided into waves. So how many waves we have? Various waves we have. So first wave is between 19th century and early 20th century, which focused on legal issues, particularly suffrage. That's why this movement is called as women's suffrage movement. So the key figures include Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. So these people fought for legal rights of women, civil rights especially, legal rights of women. Then when we have to talk about second wave feminism, we get to see that between 60s and 80s, this wave came into existence where it expanded feminist concerns to include workplace, family, and reproductive rights. So why should not women have rights on their own bodies? Okay, what sort of working conditions should be there and what conditions are existing? How families sometimes make women an invisible labor, a silent mourner, and all these things. So these things have been discussed in second wave feminism when it came to existence. Various people like key figures like Betty Friedan and then Simon Debo. So these people have focused on various conditions of women related to workplace, family, and reproductive rights. So the feminine mystique in 1963 came and it became a sensational book. And Simon de Beauvoir however you pronounce, she wrote the most sensational book, The Second Sex, in 1949, which also discussed the various types of troubles and struggles women have, especially related to workplace, family, and reproductive rights. So this is considered as second wave feminism. Then comes third wave feminism in 1990s to present, emphasized individuality, diversity, and intersectionality, where you get to see the key figures like Judith Butler, gender trouble. She talks, I mean, she writes gender trouble in 1990, and also you see Audre Lorde, who critiqued the exclusion of women of color from mainstream feminism. So when you are talking about feminism, you cannot only focus on white women and their problems, right? So people excluded, they did not specifically looked into the problems of black women. Therefore, Audre Lorde comes up with with the ideology that black women should not be excluded from the problem. So she criticized that exclusion of women of color as in black women or brown women should not be removed from the mainstream feminism. We have to even look at their problems, and their problems are specific problems comparing to the problems of white, she says. So she talks about the variations in the issues of these two types of women, and comes up with different ideology, different set of points of feminism in the third wave feminism. Fourth wave feminism, when you talk about, 2010 to present, it is going on. So it focuses on issues like sexual harassment, body positivity, and online activism. So this wave is still evolving with a strong emphasis on digital platforms for feminist organizers or feminist organizing. So let's move on to the next part of our understanding. So there is a summary of unit of 11. What exactly does unit 11 provides? It provides uh, a comprehensive overview of the origins, schools of feminism. Then you talk about uh, various feminist It highlights the diversity of feminist thoughts from liberal to radical feminism to black, post-colonial, eco-feminisms. This unit also traces the historical development of feminism through its waves, emphasizing how feminist concerns have evolved over time in response to changing societal and cultural contexts. The key writers are also here are some such as Mary Wollstonecraft, Virginia Woolf, Toni Morris, and Judith Butler. These are a few people we discussed so far. Okay, so this is about feminist theory and activism. This is summary of 11th unit. Moving on to 12th unit, the post-colonial introduction. Post-colonialism refers to the period after colonialism, focusing on the effects of European colonialism or colonialism on former colonies. Okay? Who are former colonies? India is a former colony to Britishers. What is colonialism? When you think of colonialism, some of the countries were colonized by certain other countries. They came, they occupied these countries, they tried to rule these countries politically, socially, economically, and all they wanted was they simply looted these countries. They simply made people slaves of them. They utilized the resources here. They enjoyed all the material pleasures, material benefits from these colonized countries. So India was colonized by British. Africa was colonized by British. America was also colonized by British. So this is colonizing. But as soon as these colonies were, I mean, as soon as these people left these countries and gave independence to those countries, whatever the literature came into existence is called as post-colonialist in literature. So post-colonialism refers to the period after colonialism, focusing on the effects of European colonialism on former colonies. Former colonies means the countries which became independent. Now, post-colonial literature critiques the Eurocentric perspective that dominated colonial narratives and explores the social, political, and cultural impacts of colonialism. So the term post-colonial emerged in the late 1970s, replacing earlier terms like Commonwealth literature, which were seen as too limiting. Anyway, post-colonial writers often address themes such as slavery, migration, resistance, race, and gender, challenging the dominant narratives of imperial Europe. So how Europe was so imperial, so dominant, right? So we get to see, so is it only countries which struggled, suffered? Not only countries, but the more you go through deductive method and try to understand, women are the more sufferers even in the post-colonial conditions. So let's see what exactly happened. Double colonization. The concept of double colonization refers to the dual oppression faced by women in post-colonial societies. They are oppressed both by patriarchal structures by colonial powers. So post-colonial feminist scholars argue that women experiences of oppression that are shaped by intersecting factors such as race, ethnicity, and class. This intersectional approach highlights the need to understand the specific context of oppression faced by women in different parts of the world. Now, what exactly are we talking about? We are talking about liminal space and hybridity. So liminality and hybridity are central concepts of post-colonial discourse. So let's see what is liminality. It refers to an in-between state, a transition space where identities are fluid and ambiguous. So this concept is often used to describe the experiences of colonized subjects who are caught between their indigenous culture and the culture imposed by colonizers. So you have some culture, Indian culture, you are also having foreign culture, both come together. You don't know where you fit, right? So this is a liminal culture. Right. And hybridity, it refers to the blending of cultures that occurs as a result of colonization. So post-colonial writers often explore how hybrid identities emerge from the clash of culture, creating new forms of culture and expression. So today people wear jeans pants. It's a mix of culture, right? So Western and Indian culture mixed up. People wear jeans pants, but they go to temples. So this is a mix of culture. Clash of culture is happening here. This is called hybridity. So these concepts are illustrated in the works of writers like Flora Wapa, and then who discusses the challenges faced by childless women in African societies, highlighting how cultural expectations can marginalize certain groups. So significant post-colonial women writers and their works when we look at, we see that Alice Walker, The Color Purple. which is a Pulitzer Prize winning novel that explores the lives of African American women in the rural South. It focuses on themes of race, gender, and oppression. The protagonist, Celie, endures abuse from her father and then her husband, but eventually finds strength and independence through her relationship with other. Chimanda Adichie, uh, who writes Half a Yellow Sun. In 2006, it came into existence. So it is the setting is during the Nigerian Civil War, Biafran War, we say. So this novel examines the impact of colonialism and war on Nigerian society. Adiche explores themes of cultural hybridity, identity, and then the resilience of women in the face of political, social upheaval. And we move on and see Urvashi Butalia in the other side of silence, where in 2000 she brought this work into limelight. So this work focuses on the experiences of women during the partition of India in 1947, documents the violence and displacement faced by women, highlighting how they were often the become the worst victims of conflict. Mahashweta Devi, where Chotti Munda, his arrow. Choti Munda and his arrow. She writes this. Devi's work focuses on the exploration of tribal communities in post-colonial India. She critiques the marginalization of indigenous people and the double communities and by broader patriarchal structures. Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, Can the Subaltern Speak is something she writes which is an influential essay, talks about whether marginalized women, the subaltern, can truly express their experiences within colonial and patriarchal systems. She critiques the tendency of Western academics to speak for subaltern women, arguing that their voices are often silenced or misinterpreted. And coming to the summing up of this, we see Unit 12 provides a comprehensive overview of post-colonialism and its significance for women writers. Key themes include the dual operation of women in post-colonial societies, where double colonialism is one thing we talk about, and the fluid and hybrid identities that emerge from colonial encounters. We talk about two different theories like liminality and hybridity, and the importance of intersectionality in understanding women's experiences, where the unit also highlights the contributions of significant post-colonial feminist writers such as Audra Lorde and then Chandra Talpade Mohanty, Alice Walker, Chimanda Ngozi Adichie, and Urvashi Butalia, Mahashweta Devi, and Gayatri Spivak. These are the famous writers, a few famous writers of this era, where Unit 12 gave us very clear idea about what exactly their works are and what are their key themes, what are their works, all these things we have learned. So these writers challenge Eurocentric narratives and give voice to the marginalized, offering more nuanced understanding of the complexities of post-colonial identity and resistance. Now you see Unit 13, where we talk about the concept of center and margin. The marginalized are as the others. Postmodern approach comes into picture. So knowledge is constructed and silenced voices must be heard is what postmodern approach tells. So it is talking about center and margin. Who are center, who are given more focus, and who are margin, who are not given any voice. So this unit aims to bring forth the diverse marginalized voices and explore multiple identities in the Indian context. So explanation is this way. So this section sets foundation of understanding how literature serves as a tool to challenge the dominant narratives and recognize the voices of the marginalized. We see here slave narratives. So definition of slave narratives is this: first-hand accounts of enslaved individual experiences is what slave narrative is. So you are not given the chance to speak. That means you are not given voice, you are marginalized, and you become slave to somebody, and you write a work that becomes slave narrative, right? So this is first-hand account. That means the one who got enslaved, that person has written something based on his or her experiences. Right. So origin emerged in 18th century during the abolitionist movement. So abolitionist movement, when you talk about certain themes came into existence, such as resistance to slavery, where male perspectives focus on agency, female perspectives focus on survival and family ties. Okay, and then sexual exploitation of women slaves also is a part of this. Notable works when you look at incidents in the life of a slave girl written by Harris Jacobs, The History of Mary Prince written by Mary Prince, The influence of contemporary literature, Toni Morrison's Beloved. These are a few works that you see as notable works of the slave narrative. So, slave narratives highlight the brutality and slavery while also showcasing resilience and defiance. Women's narratives add a gendered perspective. What are trauma writings? So, trauma writings, when we look at, Kathy Cott defines trauma as an overwhelming experience leading to psychological distress. Feminist contribution, when we look at Judith Herman connects war trauma with the trauma experienced by women in civilians, right? So it deals with rape, domestic violence, etc. Where you see the notable works, again, we can talk about the Yellow Wallpaper, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, who writes about mental oppression and hysteria in marriage. The story of an hour, Kate Chopin, talks about emotional repression in marriage. So, trauma writings usually examine psychological impact of personal and collective tragedies, which emphasize on the silencing of women's suffering. Right, moving on. Disability studies also is a part of it. So focusing on how disability is socially constructed rather than just a medical issue. So women with disabilities face double discrimination, gender and disability when we look at. So to understand this, we need to go through the notable works like Anita Ghai's Disembodied Form, Issues of Disabled Women, Intersection of Gender and Disability in India. Similarly, Malini Chibb's One Little Finger, which is a personal journey of the writer from disability to activism. So this section highlights the struggles of disabled individuals, particularly women, who face social and infrastructural barriers beyond their impairments, right? And you see Muslim women writings also as a part of our learning. So historically, they are underrepresented in literature, to be very honest. So early Muslim women writers were like Gulbadan Begum, who wrote Humayun Nama, Mughal history. And you see Mahalaka Bahai Chanda, who wrote Gulzari Malhaka. So it's a poetry collection. So modern writers, when you look at Roeka Shakawat Hussain, who writes Sultana's Dream, and utopian feminist fiction. Ismat Chugtai also writes Lihaf. It's a female sexuality and subversion of norms. And you see contemporary voices like Asra Nomani, Samia Ali, Seema Kazi. These people wrote modern works where Muslim women writings challenge stereotypes and provide diverse perspectives on gender, religion, and identity. So there are diasporic writings also when we look at. So these themes talk about identity crisis, cultural hybridity, nostalgia, alienation of people who try to go abroad and settle there abroad. So we see Anita Desai writing Bye Bye Blackbird. It is an immigration and alienation theme in England. Jhumpa Lahiri also says, comes up with Interpreter of Maldives, Indian American diaspora, she writes, with identity struggles as her major themes. Taslima Nasreen writes Laja with a religious persecution theme in Bangladesh. What exactly happened? The real accounts are discussed. And diasporic literature usually explores the struggles of adapting a new cultural space while maintaining ties with the homeland. Okay, we are going to the last or conclusive part of this particular unit. That is Unit 13. So Unit 13, when you talk about uh, it gives us a sense of marginalized voice coming to the forefront, challenging the dominant narratives. We also see that themes like slavery, trauma, disability, Muslim women experiences, LGBTQ identities, and diaspora. So literature usually serves as a medium to amplify unheard stories and drive social change. We also see that as a final explanation, we understand that by studying these diverse narratives, we gain a broader understanding of historical injustices and contemporary struggles, fostering a more inclusive literary discourse. So here I would like to wind up with the session because I've covered up 11, 12, and 13 uh, units completely with all the necessary concepts that one needs to study in order to be able to write the exams or to understand the themes and be able to research on it adequately and work on things. So I thank for the opportunity to be able to take this because there is a slight network connectivity issues also existing right now. I request, I would like to wind up the session, but tomorrow I'll be extending a little more as per the need and be able to finish block 5, also some necessary discussions over all the units that we have discussed so far. So thank you.